To Zavia, PM Dr. Johaini, PM Dr. Sazlin, and fellow students. So welcome to IPTK's Research Methodology webinar series. And today's webinar is actually a continuation of two or three webinar that we have actually conducted previously. The aim of the webinar under this series is actually to upgrade and what we call to empower the postgraduate students in terms of their skills and also knowledge, hearing the sharing of experience and wisdom from our invited speakers. And today we are lucky to actually have PM Dr. Johaini, or PM Jo, as she is actually popularly known to many of us. But before we go further, I would like to actually invite Dr. Zawia to actually give a short welcoming speech to all of us. Falyatafadhal, Dr. Zawia.
Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and good afternoon, okay, to all the lecturers, supervisor, our speaker, PM Dr. Johaini Jabar, okay, and also our postgraduate students. Okay, today we would like to welcome PM Dr. Johaini Jabar as a speaker. The topic today will be about tips for writing coherently in research. As we know, this topic is very, very important to understand and to ensure, okay, especially for postgraduate student and also for supervisor, especially what is the coherence in academic writing. We hope PM Dr. Johaini will share the tips and also provide knowledge to exposure and also experience to our postgraduate student and also supervisor. Okay, on behalf of IPTK, we would like to thank PM Dr. Johaini Jabar, okay, what you call it, the famous PMJ, okay, for being as a speaker. Okay, although we know you are so busy as a dean, but still have a time being a speaker today. Okay, thank you so much, PMJ. Okay, as a speaker today. Okay, just a brief. Okay, I pass over to Cik Muhammad Shamsuri. Cik Sham, unmute.
Great. Okay, thank you, Dr. Zawia, for the brief welcoming speech. So before we go further, may I get the blessing or get the permission from PMJ to actually introduce her. PMJ joined UTM since 2005, and she is actually now the Dean of Faculty of Technology Management and Entrepreneurship. And she completed her PhD in Business Management in 2011 from the University of South Australia. And she also holds an MBA from University of Technology Mara, ITM, and Bachelor degree in Business Administration, Majoring in Finance from University Putra, Malaysia. PMJ has been teaching research methodology to undergraduate and postgraduate students since 2017, and her main research interest is looking into how people and organizations accept and adopt technology and innovation. Additionally, she was keen, I thought she's keen in terms of looking into the relationship between innovation and technology with inculcating entrepreneurial mindset among university students and professionals. Throughout her career, I think she has actually managed to supervise and completed few postgraduate students. She has published in many index high impact journals and whatnot. I think due to her experience and knowledge, it is actually an apt opportunity for us to be here today, to be listening to the wisdom. Because for me, knowledge is one thing, but listening to wisdom is actually more important, because it opens up a lot of opportunity and what we call a possibility for us to learn new things that is actually not written in the book, based on experience. And the simple rule for today will be, if I may, Dr. PMJ, is to allow you to actually deliver and share your slides and share your experience. But at the same time, maybe participants whomever want to ask questions, you allowed to ask or interject during the presentation if you have any questions. But give some signals first before you ask questions, and you can also put in the chat sections where we can actually. I will read the question when PMG allow. The question and answer to start. So without further ado, I would like to call PMG to share and start actually sharing. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much, moderator Tuan Haji Samsuri. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I would like to give a big thank to IPTK, especially to PM Sazlin for approaching me for this talk series to become one of your speakers. So basically, also thank you for the moderator for the lovely introduction of myself. So basically today I'm just more about sharing from my own experience. If we talk about wisdom, I don't think I'm quite there yet, but it's we can share what we have gone through together. Okay, so thank you also to Dr. Zawiyah for the lovely introduction, and to everyone who's here today. So I can see some researchers are also here with us. So this talk is actually designed for postgraduate students, but I'm quite sure that we all can have a refresher course as well. And by all means, if our researchers here think that there are things that I need to add in, or there's some points that you think that needs more clarification for the students, by all means, you can use the chat box and we can discuss further, okay? So allow me to share my slides. So I'll be using a slide to present today. And I would like all participants, really appreciate if all participants can use the chat box so that we can communicate during the presentation as well, or the sharing session, yeah? So feel free to use the chat box to ask questions or to comment on any issues that I've brought up during the presentation. Okay, so as we all know, we are in a research methodology webinar series organized by IPTK. And this is me. So basically, I would like that everyone to just address me as Dr. J. So I've already mentioned this to some other platforms, I think, because it's a special name given by the faculty members to me when I came back from my studies in PhD. So they say, let's call Dr. J. So it's a very short and sweet name. So currently I'm a Dean of Faculty of Technology Management and Technopreneurship. And this is my email. So if you have anything you want to discuss with me, you can use the email as a platform. So basically, I would like to ask all of you, so if you can use the chat box, can maybe share with us, with all the participants as well, in what is your current progress in research. If you are already a researcher in terms of an academic researcher and you're an academic here in UTM, you can just type there, I'm an academic or I'm a lecturer here. Or if you are a student, please share what year you are in. Are you in a master's science course or a PhD course? And please state your progress. So are you currently in proposal, have you conducted a proposal defense? Or are you preparing for a proposal defense? Or are you going to go for your viva? Have you just completed your viva? So please feel free to use the chat box so that we know at what level you are in terms of doing research. Can we do that? So hopefully that you can use the chat box so that I know quite roughly who are in the participants today. Okay, so speaking of which, okay, so to us researchers, even myself, I still receive comments like this. Okay, when we send out papers to journals, yeah, articles to journals, especially high-ranked journals, a lot of the comments will really help to shape the paper. So for example, sometimes to us, because it's so clear to us, we write it, but when other people read our work, they don't understand. So they will comment like, this comes out of the blue. Why suddenly you are saying this. What is your main message? So if you are a researcher, maybe when you are writing your proposal for an FRGS grant, for example, and you receive some comments from your reviewers, or if you're a student, you're sending out your work to your supervisors. So these are some of the comments that you receive. And other comments include, what is the focus of your thesis? So for students, candidates or students who are currently doing research, if your supervisor is asking what is the focus of your thesis, it does not mean that your supervisor doesn't know what your research is about. It's asking you, do you know what your research is about? Because maybe you are writing, the way you write is all over the place, and he or she wants to bring you back to the main focus, okay? Or even as simple as you do not refer to all of the tables or figures. Yes, some students, they like to dump in a lot of information, a lot of figures, tables, but they do not refer it back in the write-up, okay? So this will confuse the readers. Okay, some other comments might be, what does this, this refer to? Because some students, they like to put, this is because blah, 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 and this is why, what is this referring to? Okay, because you are the one who is writing it, you understand what this is referring to. So when you write, that is why coherence and cohesiveness is really important. You have to find other words that are related to this, okay, the ones that you are referring to. So sometimes you also have missing references, okay, you maybe do not cite it in your text, but it's in your reference list, or vice versa, okay? And some students, they really like to put a lot of things in there, especially in their literature review chapter. Yeah, I've just completed reading a thesis that's going for Viva, okay, this week. So yes, a lot of concepts there, but what is this all about? Okay, students really like to make their literature review long, okay, so until up to 100 pages and so on. But actually, to make it compact and concise, that is actually the hard part. Okay, so, and the final one, okay, if you receive this one, this comment for your thesis before Viva, or you're in big trouble, okay? So your research question is not really answered. So this is a very huge comment if you receive this in your Viva or in your thesis, okay? So what we want to do is we want to limit all these comments. We want to make our writing clear, and what's inside our brain is transferred smoothly to your thesis, okay? So that is why the topic for today is tips for writing coherently in research. So there are various tips out there, and I'm quite sure that English lecturers will be could present this topic beautifully, better than me. But what I'm going to touch here is not about grammar or about how to construct a sentence, but it's more on how to ensure the logical flow of ideas within your thesis, okay? But writing beautifully in terms of less grammatical error and no typos will really help to make the readers understand your work, okay? Because we want to minimize apa ni, kalau kita cakap bahasa Melayu macam kita distracted lah, tu bahasa Inggeris distracted. We are not distracted by all these errors, okay? So, okay, next. So basically, this afternoon, I'm only going to touch 3 things, right? So one is, what is coherent research? So we will look into a little bit on coherent versus cohesive. So just a little bit. And then we are going to look into how to write a coherent literature review chapter. So why do I choose literature review chapter? Because to me, that is the chapter that sets out whether or not it's going on smoothly or not, okay? Whether your thesis is smoothly written or not. Basically, during my experience of reading various theses for examination, when the literature review is very clear, the flows nicely, very coherent, I will have a feel-good feeling, okay, that this is going well. So as a student, if you're currently a research student, please try your best to write your literature review beautifully, because it will set the tone for the rest of your thesis or your research. Okay, so I am going to take literature review chapter as an example. Okay, but you have to write coherently throughout your thesis, not only literature review chapter, but I'm going to take that chapter as an example for this particular talk. Okay, and finally, I will leave you with some tips to write coherently. Okay, so next, what is coherent basically? Okay, can a person be coherent? Okay, so a person can be coherent when he or she is able to speak clearly and you can understand the person easily. Okay, some people, it's hard for them to get their points across. Okay, sometimes they write better than the way they communicate. Okay, so if a person is coherent, he or she is able to speak clearly and we can understand them easily. So what about thinking? What is coherent in thinking? So when a person has a coherent thinking, they can express their thoughts in a clear and calm way, right? So that other people can understand what they are saying. Okay, just now we are talking about they speak clearly. Okay, they use the right words. But now when they are thinking coherently is when how they put their ideas together when they want to explain. Okay, so especially when you can differentiate people who are coherent or not, try and ask them the way to some place. Okay, can you tell me how to get to UTM campus Indo, for example? Okay, so it can make a difference, a coherent person and a person who's not. Okay, so what is a coherent speech? So a coherent speech is someone who's capable of logical and consistent speech or thought. Okay, so they can, when they talk, they will put their words in a logical and consistent, and they speak in an orderly manner. But today we are not going to look at the person. We are going to look at your writing, your thesis, because as a person, okay, your examiners will not know you personally. All right, but they will get to know you through your thesis. Okay, but you will have the opportunity, okay, to share your research during the Viva session. So as a person, okay, you need to also be coherent. You need to also have a coherent thinking and coherent speech during your Viva. But all of this, okay, will shape how you are writing your thesis, okay, or how you wrote your thesis. So actually in writing, okay, it's a logical bridge between words, sentences, and paragraph. So if you do not train yourself to have a coherent thinking or coherent speech, it will be difficult for you to write coherently, because this is how you represent yourself. You represent your work. So it starts with you as a person, the way you are thinking, the way you converse, and also the way you write. Okay, so in research, what is coherence? So let's have just a quick look. So basically, when you say a research has coherence, okay, when it is really clear from the beginning, the purpose of the research and how the researcher state is as important. The one question that I really like to ask students during Viva, okay, is what makes you pick this topic? Because you are going to dwell in this topic for 2 or 4 years of your life, or more than that even. So why do you think that this topic is important, so important that you want to spend your life, or 4 years or 5 years or 10 years of your life, to do this topic? Okay, so if you can state that clearly in your introduction chapter or in your literature review chapter, then the examiners will be really convinced that yes, this is a very good topic. Okay, sometimes the topic is really good, but the way you write it, we cannot see the importance. Okay, so make sure that you start with a very clear purpose and the importance of the topic. Okay, so next, once you already convince the readers or the examiners that this topic is important, you have to show that you have chosen the appropriate research methods. So I can also see a lot of students is weak in this area. They usually already start with a mindset that I'm going to use SEM, for example. I'm going to do interviews or qualitative methodology. So when they write the methodology chapter, is as if it's like separated from their other chapters. They have decided before they start their research. So actually it should be communicating with the previous chapters. Okay, once you already decide on the importance, you need to justify the method that you use is the most suitable to achieve the purpose of the research. Okay, so if you say you want to go for model development or model validation, then only you go for SEM. But if you are just going to test certain relationships, you don't necessarily need to go for SEM. You can just do linear regression or just PLS SEM, or compared to covariance-based SEM. So if you are not well versed in your reading, okay, and you are not clear why you want to use that topic, that particular method, then it will not show a coherence in terms of the way you decide on the method. Okay, and then the method must be also speaking or communicating hand in hand with your research questions as well. Okay, like I've mentioned earlier in my previous slide, if the examiner said you did not answer your research question, so that is a very big problem. You can say that it's okay, I can edit my research question to fit my findings. But in reality, in research, you set your research questions first to then try to achieve it with the proper method and the proper discussion. Okay, and finally, okay, so just now I think I've mentioned about the methods. Okay, and finally, after you have conduct your analysis, all right, you make sure that you pair it back to the research question and make sure that you use the relevant references to support the findings. Yeah, but just limit it to the scope of your research. Don't be too excited and go out of your research scope. All right, so when just now we are talking about coherence in research, and what about writing? So you can see this beautiful waterfall here. You can see that this river is made out of a lot of smaller waterfalls that all comes into this one big beautiful river. So this is actually what we want to achieve in coherence in writing. When we are talking about a few things, because when you do research, you want to introduce first the topic, okay? You want to talk about the research problem first, the background, why you want to do this, and what are the questions that you have set to achieve, okay? And then you are going to review papers from past research. Then you're going to talk about the methodology, and then your analysis and your results. So there are a few topics that you are going to touch, and how does all these topics flow smoothly, okay? So when you write, you have to choose the right words, the right sentences to link from one idea to another. So coherence is essential quality for good academic writing, right? Okay, so basically, to summarize what coherence and cohesion are. So coherent is when you imagine that you are going to build a building, okay? So coherent is a building or the structure, and cohesive is more of the bricks and cement that is going to make up the building. So coherent will be the bigger picture and how it all relates, but cohesive is something that will match it all to make it a beautiful whole unit, right? So we are going to talk about coherent in this topic today. All right, so when we say that we are conducting research, okay, these are the steps that all of us need to go through, okay, when you conduct a research. So first and foremost, you have to identify the problem first. Because if there is no problems, okay, everything is fine, then why are you going to do a research? Okay, why should you embark on a research? Because research at the end of the day is for a novel finding, something that is new, something that solves problem, or introduces a new element, or something that can improve something that is currently done, okay? So then when you have identify the problems, you will go to literature or the past research. Why do you need to review the literature? Is because you don't want to do something that has already been done. So for example, if you have gone through 4 years of your PhD research and suddenly then you realize that someone else has done something's really similar to your research. So where is the novelty? Okay, so doing literature review is to ensure that you are not replicating, okay, 100% replicating someone else's work, or there are still some gaps, okay, or something that the other person's project or research did not complete, okay, or did not touch on. So once you find that out, okay, the gap, then you can say that this research is can be done, it's important, it's significant, okay. Then you can clarify your problem, okay, make it more clear, define terms and concept. So students, yeah, especially here, if you are here, students who are currently in this session, operational definition is very, very important, okay. Why operational definition is very important? Because a certain thing can be defined in various ways. So let's say a very simple element like success. Okay, can someone help me? Maybe type in the chat box. Yeah, what is success to you? Okay, so that we can see, is there any difference in terms of how you define success? So maybe you can try and type whatever comes to mind. When we say, I am successful, or that person is successful, what do you see in that person that makes you say they are successful? Okay, can you please type in the chat box so that we can have a look later? Okay, someone said about reaching their goals. Okay, good. What else? Maybe we can get 2 more. Reach their goals. What else? Anyone? Okay, you can all type in the chat box. So basically, when we say, let's say Abdul Karim said, it's about reaching your goals. And maybe someone else will say it's about their wealth. Okay, and someone else will say it's about family. They have 3 or 5 children, for example. Okay, so to define success would be different for different people. So how does your research define success? So that is why it is very important for you to clarify and define your constructs or your factors clearly, so that the examiners, okay, or people you are sending your articles to, the journal reviewers, yeah, will be clear on what you are looking into, the specific view of your term, okay. The next one is how you define your population, okay, to students as well, okay. This is also very, very, very important, okay, because this will shape your study. A similar topic with different population will result in different findings, okay. If you are talking about, for example, currently we are in this online learning activity or online webinar series, everything is online. So if you collect data on the lecturers who are conducting classes online versus students who have gone through online classes, the results or the views of online classes will be different. So that is why when you decide on a certain population, you need to really justify why this population is the most suitable for this research, okay? And also through experience, usually the candidates or the students have already decided early on who they want to send out their surveys to. So although you can do that, yes, sometimes you know already who your population will be for this research. You need to come out with a justification and all of the the right sampling strategy. Yeah, you need to tell the examiners, okay, how you come up with your sampling strategy, right? Then you need to develop a plan, you collect your data, and you analyze your data, okay? But how do you want to ensure the coherence in research? So to ensure the coherence in your thesis, okay, if you're talking about preparing thesis for your master science or maybe your PhD, I would like to share with you in terms of breaking it up into 5 things, okay, or 5 sections. First one is looking at your thesis as a whole, okay, as a from chapter 1 until maybe chapter 5. Some students maybe have 6 chapters, some students have 7 chapters, but usually majority, I think average has 5 chapters. So usually chapter 1, what do we write in chapter 1? To those here with us today, just to check whether you are still awake. So what is chapter 1 usually? Chapter 1 is introduction. Good, Abdul Karim. What about chapter 2? What is chapter 2? Who can help us? What is chapter 2? Literature review. Okay, Abdul Karim again. Thank you, Atira. Chapter 3. What is chapter 3? Methodology. Chapter 4. Good. Research methodology. Chapter 4. What about chapter 4? Analysis and results. Yes. And finally, chapter 5. Chapter 5 usually is more discussion. Okay, so some people will do results and discussion together. Some will do, yes, conclusion chapter, or sometimes discussion and conclusion as chapter 5, and so on. Okay, so when you look at it as a whole, okay, so let's take the 5 chapters, yeah, the average 5 chapters. First, you will talk about the background in chapter 1. Why you want to do this research, what are the gaps, okay, what are the problems, what are the research questions that you are going to try and answer, who will be your potential respondents, okay, and what are the summary of the results of your research, because chapter 1 will summarize everything. So once you go to chapter 2, it will communicate with the problems that you have mentioned earlier, as well as the research questions. So I would like to just share with you using a quantitative based study. Okay, if we are talking about factors, for example, I think it's easy for all of us to understand. Let's say we are talking about what leads to innovation in organization. So we are talking about the factors that leads to innovation in an organization. So in chapter 1, maybe we already highlighted that you are going to uncover what are the factors that you want to study on. So in chapter 2, it will say, all right, we have mentioned in chapter 1 that this study will look into the factors, and what are the factors. So from your readings, maybe from 20 or 50 literature that you have read, there's around 10, okay, reoccurring factors. However, based on your scope of your research or the context of your research, you will narrow it down to 5, and you have to tell your examiners or your potential examiners, okay, why only this 5 that you have chosen. So that will be discussed in chapter 2. So then when you go to chapter 3, okay, we are going to talk about how do you want to test the relevance of all of these factors. When you go to chapter 4, you will show all your analysis, okay, what you have done to ensure that all of these factors are relevant, which one is the best, which one is the strongest, and so on. And finally, in your discussion chapter, you will say, and you will tell the readers, what does all of this mean? Okay, what does all this beta mean? The T value, the P value, the correlation, yeah, mediator, moderator, significant, not significant. What does all this mean? Okay, so then you will go back to the applicability of your research, and it will communicate back to your chapter 1. So that is coherence when you talk about the whole thesis. So when you talk about chapter to chapter, I've also already mentioned that also in my explanation just now, that you need to acknowledge the previous chapter before introducing a new chapter. So for example, if you are starting a methodology chapter, which is chapter 2 usually, you need to explain first that what the previous chapters have mentioned. Okay, so maybe you can say chapter 2 has discussed about the factors that relates to innovation, okay, why organizations conduct innovation, and what are the factors that you have uncovered based on certain theories that you have reviewed on. Therefore, okay, to ensure that all of these factors that have been uncovered are relevant, currently still relevant in this particular industry, the industry that you're going to focus on, this chapter will then discuss. Okay, so when you are saying coherence chapter to chapter, you have to acknowledge the previous chapter first before you introduce the current chapter. What about section to section? Yeah, in the same chapter, you need to also introduce, okay, the next section before you end the current section. So this is usually lacking in terms of theses that are conducted, written by students. Okay, but since you are doing your research degree, this is your practice, your practice to become a researcher. Okay, so it's okay to not know this, but now you can start. Yeah, before you introduce the next section, you have to, and you want to end your current section, please introduce the next one. So you have to put maybe 1 or 2 sentences to close it and say, okay, this section has discussed about A, okay, and therefore the next section will discuss about the relevance of A with B. So then you introduce B, right? This is also similar from paragraph to paragraph and sentence to sentence. So I will show you the example of paragraph to paragraph and sentence to sentence. So I've taken this. This is a very new article. So this is about impact of supplier innovativeness, top management support, and strategic sourcing on supply chain resilience. So why I highlighted supply chain resilience is because this is the outcome of the research. This is what this research is about. How organization can achieve supply chain resilience. So if you want to read more about this article, so I've put the DOI here, so you can search it yourself. So I've just taken a paragraph from the introduction section. So let's look at how this this researcher, okay, or this author has write a beautiful paragraph that is really coherent. Okay. So first, the blue one is talking about what's currently happening globally. So there's a lot of complexities, there's a lot of uncertainties, and from these uncertainties will result in negative effects. Okay, so if organizations don't take action on these uncertainties or negative effects, they can be faced by failures. So this green one is talking about if you don't take any actions on the complexities and uncertainties. So you can have failures, it will affect your stock prices, you will get negative consequences, disruptions, and this is also noted in supply chain risk management literature. So from these two issues, the uncertainties and failures, if you don't take action, this study will explore, okay, there is a need to explore the development of supply chain resilience. So because he is taking literature from other people who's saying there's a need to explore, this is showing the importance of this research, okay, of this topic. So writing it this way, if you this will show you an example of how coherence in terms of sentence to sentence and from idea to idea. Okay, so you can read this paper is from a Q2 journal, and it's also been Q1 previously, but now it's in Q2. So it's a very good journal. So again, I will also like to suggest to students, yeah, when you are taking references, make sure you're taking it from a very good journals, okay, very good journals, Q1, Q2, Q3, or Q4, okay, and because why, the validity of the research usually is better compared to the other journals, right? So you should take it from the best. Okay, so we've looked into the introduction, what coherent is, what is coherent in writing, and what is coherent in research. So let's have a look at an example if we are writing a literature review chapter, okay? because literature review chapter will set the tone for your research. So basically, why do you conduct literature review? Okay, what is chapter 2 all about? So if you don't know yet, okay, this is a refresher course. So first of all, it's more on a preliminary search of existing material. Like I've mentioned earlier, you are looking into what other researchers have done in the same topic. Okay, you also want to refine the research questions and objectives. So basically, if you are still in preparing your research proposal, so maybe your research questions is not quite there yet. So by reading a lot of literature in your field, relevant ones, so you can further refine it to make it more relevant to the current situation. Okay. So thirdly is to identify other research that may be in progress, okay, and they have recommendations of future research that is related to your study. Okay, so this is also a shortcut way. Some students, they don't know what topic to do research on. Okay, so you can go and read a few articles from the journals and look at the suggestions for future research. And maybe some of the suggestions are the things that you are interested in. So that can be the gap in the research area, okay, that you are going to address on. And finally, literature review will provide insights, yeah, and into the strategies and techniques appropriate for your research objectives. So sometimes students, to those who have not yet decided on what type of methodology that they are going for, or methods they are going for, quantitative or qualitative. So you can look at the similar topics, okay, or research that has been conducted by other researchers, and you can get an idea how they conducted their research methods. Okay, so they can get an idea whether or not you can use the same method or you want to use a different method. Okay, so then, okay, to ensure coherence in preparing a critical literature review, okay, a very good literature review chapter will be something that is critical, that can critique or enhance, yeah, a certain knowledge of a certain focus of research. Okay, it is not just about reporting a certain element. For example, just now we are talking about factors of innovation, of why organizations conduct innovation. So it is not a chapter to just say organizations conduct innovation because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's not about that. It's about evaluating what you read. It's about critically looking into what is out there. What is the current scenario? What type of organizations will conduct what type of innovations? If they don't conduct innovations, why? Okay, and why does innovations fail? What makes it successful? Okay, who has the last say when a certain organizations want to conduct innovation, so on and so forth. Okay, so you need to evaluate from a lot of angles, yeah, before you conduct your review. And another skill that you need to train yourself is the capacity to relate what you read to other information. So sometimes, yeah, you say you find that there's two very contradicting results from different articles, for example. Okay, then you have to try and find how you want to relate these two information, because one say that, for example, one say that innovation is really important for an organization. Organization cannot survive without innovation. And another article says that there's no need for innovation, because if organizations are doing well, why do you want to change? So you have to match these two and try to relate it. Maybe it's a different context. Maybe it's a different from different type of countries, different type of organization. Maybe one organization is more an R&D based organization. Maybe another article is talking about the context of a military force, for example. Okay, so it's different, and you have to relate this when you are doing your literature review. That is when we see a student has conducted a good and critical literature review chapter. Okay, so when you are reading, okay, while you are reading, always question yourself. So it's good to have a notebook, okay, a reflective diary, okay, whatever you want to call it. So if you are the person who likes to write by hand, okay, write everything that you read, your thoughts, okay, what you're thinking, your ideas. Or if you're a person who likes to maybe WhatsApp yourself, okay, you create a group, just only you in that current group, and you can paste in any ideas, or you have you like to email yourself the ideas. So it's up to you. So a lot of strategies that you can use to always keep yourself thinking about your research. Okay, so these are the questions that can help you to gain the techniques or skills that I've just shown you previously. Okay, so every time you read an article, always question yourself, why am I reading this? So for example, an article, maybe you are looking into the factors that you are interested in. Another article, maybe you are interested in the methodology, how they conduct it. Another article, maybe it's talking about the similar population with your study. Another one is because you want to look at the gaps, or you want to look at what has been done in that area. So always make sure you have at least these 4 questions in mind each and every time you read an article. You have to know, why am I reading this? The second one is, what is the author trying to do in this, in writing this? Okay, some articles, they are just reviewing certain issues. Okay, some is about looking into evidence. Okay, is there evidence of something? Okay, or some is about testing hypothesis. Okay, some articles is about coming out with models. So you have to know why this article is published, okay, when you are reading it. How convincing is the article? So back to the type of journals, okay? So if it is a good journal, okay, it is indexed in maybe Scopus or ISI, so there will be higher quality in terms of the research conducted and in terms of the write-up, okay? So you can maybe use the way that they write certain section as a skeleton for your thesis, but not copy paste, okay? It's more on the skeleton, how they present their idea, all right? And what use can I make of this reading? Okay, so maybe you want to look at how they the construct of their sentence, or maybe how they present the tables is very nice. Okay, maybe how they conduct the analysis, how they present their findings, and so on. So at least have these 4 questions. You can have more. If you look into research methodology books, there are some tables that will guide you on analyzing why you are reading articles. So you will question yourself in terms of while you are reading. Okay, so you can make notes, and that those notes will be used back when you are writing your literature review. Okay, and it will help to shape the coherent writing, right? So when you are searching, now we are talking about, just now you are reading, but before you want to know which articles to read, or how you want to search it, or how you want, after all of this reading, how do you want to make it all into one beautiful, coherent research, okay, or idea? So a very simple approach, you can use mind mapping. Okay, you can write down all of the constructs that you have found from the articles that you have read. Okay, you can also draw in maybe maybe another mind map about conclusions, another mind map about methodology. So if you are a mind map type of person, or a visual type of person, then in my opinion, mind map is the way to go, to help and illustrate what's in your mind. Okay, because that is the really hard part. Everything is in your mind, but how do you want to translate it into a beautifully written piece that everyone can understand? And when you search the literature, you need to also define the research parameters. don't search for everything, okay? You have to define the scope of your study. This can also be helped by generating keywords that is relevant to your research. And you need to also have a group of people or your peers or your supervisors, okay, to discuss your research or even brainstorm ideas, okay? Some students, they like to talk to their friends or the friends that are also doing research. Some maybe they talk to laymen, other people, okay, who are maybe working in that particular industry that you are going to do research on. Some people, they talk to their family or their supervisor or even their brothers and sisters. So it's up to you. Everyone that you speak about your research to, okay, it will help to clarify your focus, okay? And you have to have an open mind, okay? Because when other people listen to your research, maybe they will have another view of looking into it, okay? Maybe they will view it differently. But for today, I'm going to only focus on mind mapping, just to show you an example on how mind mapping can help with writing coherently, okay? So now I would like you all to like sit back and relax, okay? I'm going to show you some photos. Some of you may like this photo, some maybe hate it, some maybe, well, nothing, okay? Indifferent. Everyone knows what this is? Who really love this? Maybe you can type love. Who really hate this? You can type hate in the chat box. Who thinks that so-so, you can type so-so or nothing, okay, no impact, right? So, all right, a lot of people love it, okay? What type do you love? Is it milk chocolate? Is it dark chocolate? Is it white chocolate? Okay, so there's different types of chocolate, so both. Okay, Nur Ain, she really loves chocolate. What type of chocolate will you buy? Is there a specific brand that you like to buy? Or are you more luxurious type? Yeah, Muhammad Oifuddin, dark chocolate. Dark, but then we'll regret. But dark is more healthier, right? Okay. Or are you really, really luxurious? Or in Malay culture now, we say have-have, kayangan, right? So it all depends. So there's no right or wrong in terms of why you love chocolate. Okay, so basically, first of all, I've asked you, do you like chocolate? And then I asked you, what type of chocolate do you like? But now what I really want to know is, what makes you buy a certain chocolate? Do you know why you buy a certain chocolate? Anyone wants to share? Why do you buy chocolates? The taste, okay. Thank you, Juan. What else? Why do you buy a certain chocolate? Let's say you buy Kit Kat. Why do you buy Kit Kat? Why don't you buy Ferrero Rocher? Why don't you buy Lindt or Godiva? For happiness, okay. To release stress. Okay, what else? Why do you think if you have the money, would you buy Godiva chocolate? Why do you think people want to spend more money? It's just chocolate. It's the same. If you eat Kit Kat, is it the same? If you eat Kit Kat and you eat Lindt, to all of you chocolate lovers out there, is it the same for health, dark chocolate? Okay. Do you think it's the same? Consumer experience. Thank you. So this is taken from the internet, actually. Okay, I did not do this. So I found a mind map, okay, about chocolate purchasing factors. Okay, you can also search it. I've put the source here. So a lot of you have mentioned this. Yes, some say it's about the taste. Some say it's about the health or nutrition. I think someone also say about the quality and also, of course, the taste, because you like dark chocolate, some like it sweet, some like it with fruits and nuts, and so on. Okay, so for example, imagine this is a very simple topic actually, but you can use this method, okay, or tool, mind mapping, to help and clarify your research. You question yourself, you're re-questioning yourself. So because chocolate is something that is close to you, something that nearly every one of us maybe have tasted, okay? Some like it, some don't like it. So it's easy for us to relate to this activity. Okay, so if we say about price, someone maybe wants to buy a high price chocolate for a gift. Maybe you are giving it to someone you love. Maybe it's their birthday, or maybe your wedding anniversary, or you are getting married. So you're going to give give the chocolates as one of the gifts, okay, hantaran maybe. Or you just feel like you want to eat because you want to be happy. Someone's mentioned here, yeah, okay. So maybe it's an everyday snack. So if it's everyday snack, you will find something that you can afford every day. So what about the taste? So someone said dark chocolate just now for the richness, the sweetness, the texture. And some said about health, okay? So when you talk about health, you talk about calories, you talk about the percentage of cocoa, or how many chocolates that you eat on that day, okay, or grams, or maybe packets, okay. And you can also look into ingredients if you're allergic to something, okay. Is it organic? Some people, they cannot take milk or nuts, okay, so they are allergic to something. What about the quality? Is there a specific brand that you are really keen into? What about the packaging, the design? So this is how you try and link all your ideas just now. Just now, I asked you very basic questions, and you can make it into a mind map and group the answers into the right categories or the right constructs, so that when you start to write about chocolate purchasing factors, you can write it coherently. First of all, you can start with the price. You can start with the quality first, because quality will relate to price. Usually higher quality will lead to higher price. And then you can also say, okay, what makes a chocolate so pricey? Because they use the expensive ingredients to get the richness in terms of the taste, the texture, the type of sugar that they use, for example. And also, when you say about taste, there are some people who are very health conscious, or they have health problems. They really love chocolate, but they cannot eat it because of their health problems. Can you come up with an innovation of a chocolate that is healthy, for example? So talk about nutrition. What about the taste? Usually people also say that healthy things usually doesn't taste that good. Okay, so how can you relate this? So when you are writing, you try and find the ways to connect all of these ideas into one coherent research or writing. Okay, so just a little bit more. I think we are okay with time, right? So tips for writing coherently. This is the final part of this discussion today. So there are 4 tips, and afterwards I also share another 6 tips, okay? So this is a very general tip. First of all, adopt a sensible overarching structure. So just now we have looked into talking about chocolates, okay? So when you want to talk about chocolates, although you mentioned about quality, the taste, the texture, the value, nutrition, and so on, the overarching issue is chocolates. Okay, don't talk about the price of flowers, for example, because suddenly you're talking about Valentine's Day or anniversary gift, and then you go on and talk about other things. You have to come back to chocolates. Second one, introduce the reader to the topic and the point that you are talking about. So I would like for you to take a few minutes to read this. Can you read this for a few minutes? And if you have done reading about it, can you type in the chat box what it is about actually? Okay, please take a few minutes. Can you maybe guess what is this about? Can I have at least 3 guesses from the floor? Any guess is fine. Anyone wants to start guessing? What is this write-up about? Or you have no idea. You can also type no idea if you don't have any idea. What is this paragraph talking about? No idea, okay. One more, maybe? All right, so 3 people have said no idea. Actually, it is talking about washing clothes. So once you know it's about washing clothes, do you think that, you know, it makes sense? Okay, it's talking about a procedure of washing clothes. So actually, this should come first. Okay, the topic should come first. So it's talking about how you arrange your laundry into different groups, maybe colored or white, or maybe the type of material of your clothing, all right? And then one pile may be sufficient depending on how much there is to do. Okay, if you are living alone, you only have one pile of laundry. But if you're there's 6 of you in a house, so maybe you need to have more than one pile. So if you want to go somewhere else due to lack of facilities, that is the next step. If, for example, you don't have a dryer and it's been raining outside, then you need to go to a laundry, okay, and so on. So once you already know it's about washing clothes, then all of this will make sense, okay? So when you want to write a very coherent research, okay, you have to introduce the reader to the topic and to the point before you explain lengthily about a certain issue, okay? And the third one is keep your focus on your protagonists, okay? So protagonist ni watak utama lah ya, okay? So to those English lecturers, lebih pakar daripada saya. Okay, so basically you have this main character, okay, if you're talking about a storyline or a movie, so you have this protagonist. So if you are talking about, let's look at again, the chocolate. So your protagonist will be the chocolate, okay? So you talk about chocolate and the elements that people decide on when they want to buy chocolates, okay? So don't talk about cakes, for example, or biscuits, because you're not talking about that, okay? We're talking about chocolates. And finally, you need to understand how coherence relation work. Okay, so coherence relation is when you are talking about certain issues. Sometimes you want to talk about what are the similarities between research A, B, and C. Sometimes you are talking about how these two research contradicts each other. Sometimes you want to have evidence to support your claim. For example, when you say SMEs or small and medium enterprises are the backbone of the Malaysian economy. So you need some literature or articles to support your claim. So according to Department of Statistics, for example, 98% of organizations in Malaysia are small, medium enterprises. So then this type of coherence, yeah, is because you want to give evidence to the readers. And sometimes it's about elaboration. Just now we have read about washing clothes, okay? How the person elaborates the process of washing the clothes and so on, okay? So you need to understand how coherence relations work. So finally, we are in our final slide now. The 6 simple ways that I'm going to share with you to achieve coherence in writing. The ways may be simple, but the journey can be difficult, okay? So first of all, you must ensure your arguments are logically structured. So how do you want to come out with a logically structured argument? You can start with mind mapping just now, okay? Maybe brainstorming, you have a reflective diary or anything that you can jot down. If you remember, yeah, in Malaysia, we have SPM, Form 5. When we are in Form 5, we have CJ Pelajaran Malaysia, we do the BM paper, okay, Bahasa Melayu. When we write karangan, okay, we need to have an introduction, we need to introduce like 3 or 4 points, and then we do the closing. So how do we want to do this for our thesis? Using the same method, okay, you have to design your ideas to make it coherent, okay? So the next one is you need to have a clear introduction, body, and conclusion. So this one is throughout. You can use it for a section. Even a section needs to have a clear introduction, body, and conclusion. A chapter needs to also have a clear introduction, body, and conclusion. The whole thesis also have introduction chapter, the body, and also conclusion. So you can look at from a very small point of view until your whole thesis, okay? Every part of text needs to fit together, okay? So how you want to make it fit, you can design it before you write. You need to plan, okay, how you want to write there, how you want to approach this. For example, like myself, when I'm talking about my own research, okay, innovation in manufacturing organizations, for example. So manufacturing organizations or manufacturing industry usually contributes a lot to the GDP in whatever country, okay? So, but it's different when you're talking about developing or developed nations. So maybe in my introduction section, I will talk about the developed nation first, okay? And then I will go and talk, however, the developing nations has a different perspective when we are talking about the GDP contribution of manufacturing industry. So Malaysia being a developing nation, this is what our scenario is. So you need to, try and organize, okay, your thoughts to make it fit together, right? Every paragraph relates to the previous. Like I've mentioned, you need to have a closing remark of each paragraph or each section before you introduce the next one so that it will be coherent throughout. You need to plan the flow of argument before you start, maybe create a mind map, okay, or maybe draft, okay, on what you want to write on, and ensure all paragraphs are conceptually linked. Okay, in my own experience, I have read some thesis that is talking about one thing and suddenly it jumps into another thing, a different thing altogether in the next paragraph. So maybe you think that, oh, this is like, you don't have to mention this, but it happens a lot, okay? Suddenly you're talking about innovation and then the next section, you are talking about top management. That is not related. There's no link, sentences that link these two ideas together. So make sure that you plan first before you write your section or your chapter or even your thesis. Okay, so that's all from me. So hopefully there are some questions or comments. I welcome any questions or comments from the floor. Back to you, Tuan Haji Shamsuri.
Thank you, Dr. J, for the what we call power pack presentation just now. I think Dr. J has actually successfully shared with us in terms of the concept of coherence, and then the strategies, the tips and whatnot that we can actually all use in terms of improving our writing, and I think basically this is actually very much important in terms of gathering all the information that we have from start till the end, so that people and readers can actually understand what we are trying to actually deliver to them, in the most what we call understandable manner. So now I think we are opening the forum, to any of the participants or any of the audiences here, irrespective of whether they are fellow lecturers, or fellow students. Please take this opportunity. You can verbalize your questions, or you can even put in the chat, then we will read your question. Yeah. So we will wait. I think we have one question. I think from Abdul Karim. You know, he asked, during the early of the presentation whether we can delay the introduction part until we find until we get the results. So normally, it's actually people, we are not really sure. Some of us not really sure whether should we write chapter one first, or should we actually, delay it first, until we get clearer ideas of what we have actually researched.
Okay, thank you, Abdul Karim, I think, for the questions. Very valid question, very good question. So from my own experience and from the tips that I get from my previous supervisor is actually your chapter one is started from your research proposal. So if you have written a very good research proposal, you can still use that as and change it into your chapter one later on. But you need to always update your references, okay? Update your references. But when you have started doing the other chapters, chapter one will come last, okay? Because you will need to update everything once you have completed the other chapters. So usually our abstract will be written last, okay? And chapter one will also be written last, okay? Because you want to update everything, especially your references. So don't be too lazy when I've just mentioned, oh, it's your proposal. So the same proposal, you just change the grammar and then you submit. Don't do that, okay? Because a lot of things will change once you have gone through your PhD journey, and sometimes maybe some unexpected results came up, okay? But don't be afraid if some of your hypothesis is not significant or not. That is actually interesting. We want to see, examiners, they like to look at interesting findings. If you have 20 hypotheses and all accepted, okay, it's like you're not trying hard enough, okay, to me lah, okay, especially. So we want to see there's a difference in terms of what you are doing and what the other research are doing, okay. So Juan is laughing there because he's my student, still is my student, Juan, doing correction, and he really was a bit worried when there's a lot of hypotheses not accepted, but that is actually where how you critically analyze the reasons behind it becoming unaccepted. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, sikit
Very
lagi tu
interesting.
Jan, doing correction.
Thank you.
I hope
Right.
that answers you, Abdul Karim. But yeah, other researchers are also welcome to put in your answers in the chat box.
We welcome any questions from everyone today, respective whether we are, budding lecturers or your students. Don't worry, everyone here will be able to actually assist, in terms of, enlightening us in terms of, what should we do along the journey and whatnot. Should be what we call a lifelong journey in terms of, doing our research and whatnot. So, any other questions in terms of
Before
you
we
want to
get
ask?
other questions, I just would like to
Yep.
share
Right.
also, if you are sending out articles for journals, yeah, why do we need to send it out to high-ranked journals? Although the acceptance rate is quite low, but you will get very valuable comments from the reviewers that will help to shape your research further, okay? So yeah, we know that students, they usually view publishing articles as just a means for graduation, but you should also use this opportunity to get comments from experts out there globally. So try and challenge yourself to send out to high-ranked journals. And even myself, I have been rejected, a day after I've sent out articles. So it's not only you, we all have experienced the same. So don't be afraid to challenge yourself. So Abdul Karim has a question there. What are the ways to learn to write coherent? So
Yep.
yeah, I think it's the whole talk just now. So I will share the slides with you with IPTK, and maybe you can send out to everyone that has participated. So actually, it's a long journey. Okay, it's not like one class and then you are an expert in coherent writing, but you can use maybe the tips. Yeah, start with mind mapping, okay, and try to fit in your ideas like a puzzle, okay, and practice yourself when you want to talk about your research, yeah, with different audiences, okay. Yeah, through practice, good. Yeah, so when you're talking to researchers, it's easier because they have the same mindset as you. But how you want to explain your research to a normal people that don't know about research, so that is the challenge. So try and practice. Yeah.
Any other questions? So I guess WJ, in terms of writing or developing our mind map, it's actually more or less similar like writing keywords, because I think most of the time people they are carried in terms of trying to write mind map as actually an essay. So how do you advise people when they are trying to actually translate the keywords into mind map so that it becomes a very coherent kind of a idea?
Yeah, I think if my process, usually I start with brainstorming first and just jotting down anything. Just now we did like a small exercise, just asking about chocolates. What do you like about them? What other chocolates do you like to eat? Why do you eat it? When you eat it? So when you brainstorm, even with yourself, you just write whatever comes to mind, and then only sit down and take some time to group them into constructs, or into what do you say, groups of ideas. You group them into something and then try to find the link. Yeah, the link. So the paper that I've mentioned about the supplier innovativeness is a very good one. So if everyone can download it. When the author wants to talk about supplier innovativeness, so the author talks about supplier first. So what is the role of the supplier? What are the challenges? And then in the next paragraph, the author talks about innovation. What is the importance of innovation? Why should a person be innovative? How should a person be innovative, and so on. And then the next paragraph, then only the author introduces supplier innovativeness. So that is how he constructs the section. So you can also try doing that with your writing. Your point, the final point is, but how do you want to get there? It's like a journey. So you explain A first, and then B, and then C. So first you do brainstorming, and then you try to group it into logical flow. I think hopefully that helps. Maybe you also have some tricks yourself,
I think
Shamsuri, you can share with us.
It's okay. I think we will get some questions first. I think from Shamsia, she's asking whether in the introduction chapter, is it okay to actually include citations from other people? That's from Shamsia.
Yeah.
Maybe you want to answer that first.
Yeah. I think this is also based on formatting or style from university to university, if you're talking about thesis, or even journals to journals. So the journal that I've mentioned, that I've shown you earlier, there's a lot of citations in the introduction section, okay? In my opinion, and also in my own, the practice that I do, is it's okay to put citations. So other researchers, maybe you want to fight me, it's okay. We can agree to disagree because we have different styles in terms of the way we want to present it. To me, it's okay because if you have a very strong claim, okay, like I mentioned earlier just now, it's very simple claim. SMEs is the backbone of Malaysian economy. It's a very strong statement. So you need to have a citation or reference to support that claim. So things like that, to me, you need to have citation. Yeah.
Thank you. I agree with you that, it depends on the school of thought in terms of, how you approach, the writings and how you actually construct your ideas and whatnot. So I wouldn't want to actually make it, something very complex and something, what we call, contention for argument, because that's actually, not what we call the core issues in terms of, writing. It depends on whether your supervisor is okay with that, and then whether your panels are okay with that. So as long as we can get what we call a consensus, between the team that we are in, I think we are okay. So Dato Swedi is actually asking about issue of repetition. So he said that by doing or what you call keywords involve repetition, and it becomes something that is actually resisted in some platforms. Yeah? And we have been trained to loathe redundancy. So any comment from you, Jay?
Yeah. Of course, when we are doing research, I'm always reminded by my previous supervisor to not use the same word in the same sentence. Okay, of course, the redundancy. But redundancy, not only same words, but also the same way of writing. So you can look at it in different ways. For example, I've also been, asked to improve my writing when I always use a passive way of writing. It's always this person said that, this person mentioned that, it is also found that, okay, so that is also another form of redundancy that is, it will not help in terms of the flow of writing, and when people read it, they will get irritated. So we need to read a lot, look at other styles on how to present the ideas in a very nice way, in my opinion. So yeah, redundancy is not only about wordings, it's also about the style you present in your writing. For example, students, I think I've mentioned in my talk just now, they like to use this. So this means that. So this leads to this. So you can change that this to something that is similar to the core issue that you're talking about. Just now that I've shown you on the paper, it's talking about global issues and then constraints, negativity. So it's all the same things, but using different wordings, but still communicating the same issue. So yeah, I think redundancy is something that we should avoid when we are doing research or writing research, because it will show that we have like a flair in terms of writing, but it's really difficult to learn that overnight. So it's through experience, and you still can improve from time to time. I hope that answers, or at least, give some idea.
Yeah, I think that's a very good statement. And I think there are a lot of platforms, resources that we can actually go into, like academic phrase banks, and looking at what are the phrases that are suitable to actually explain and to expand on what you have said. I think it is actually also wise for us to actually read and try to imitate first, in terms of what are the especially good scholars, how do they write, the language styles, the choice of words and whatnot, could also be what we call a starting point, before we develop our own style of writing. As you said, it takes a lot of time and effort, to reach a certain what we call maturity in terms of writing, right? And to start is actually to try to imitate first, but not to say that we plagiarize, but we we learn. There are keywords that could be similar, but we can take and become a template before we develop our own style of writing. So I think that's from my side. So we wait for any other questions from the students or
Yeah,
from
just to
fellow
add
lecturers.
on that,
Yeah.
I use the term skeleton. So it's like a if we want to talk, we want to write methodology, especially. To me, methodology is a completely different language, yeah, than what we are used to, because it's very technical and you have to use the right terms. So in my own experience, when I was writing my methodology chapter for my PhD, I used a very good thesis first as a skeleton, you know, at least to look at the contents first, table of contents, and what they write in that particular content, and then to fit in my own study, so that I know the flair of writing methodology chapter, because to me it's very different way of writing compared to writing a literature review chapter. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Jay, for the additional points. Any other question? Any other views? Maybe, you know, I got Dato, got Dr. Pham. Yeah. So we got I think PM
Yeah.
Noain
Or
was
maybe they
actually
also want to share their own experience.
Yeah.
You're also welcome.
PM Dr. Noain is also here. And also Dr. Sazlin herself, you know, or even the students, you know, some of you could also be, you know, experienced researcher before you embark on your PhD, you know, Juan, you know. So
Yeah, I
no
can see
problem.
my students here, Juan, Umu, Ideal. Yeah, thank you for coming.
Then we have TS Muhammad Razali, you know, who has gone through the training too. Come on, please. You know, we
Anyone
are
here
all
from other institutions? Maybe
yeah.
from UITM or Polytechnic? They maybe want to share your journey with us. How can we minimize plagiarism? That's easy. You have Turnitin. There's one trick that someone shared with me, but I can't remember who. If especially to us who are bilingual or speaks more than 2 languages, maybe Abdul Karim, you speak more than 2 languages. So the trick is, when you read something, you try and write it in your own language or the language that you are comfortable in, and then you translate it back to English language, but without looking into the original text. So sometimes that way you can minimize of using the same sentence structure from the article, the original article that you have written. Yeah, you have written. Right? So that's also sometimes what I use on myself. Okay, I read first, and then I close. I don't look at the original article, and I try to write it back. What did I read? Reflection, more towards reflection, not rewriting the same thing. So hopefully that helps. Or if everything fails, you can just put in your writing in Turnitin and restructure the sentences that are found to be plagiarized. Maybe Tuan Shamsuri also, you want to share your own practices?
Yeah, I think that's one of the method that we do. Normally, you know, we as you said, you know, we write first and then we try, you know, I think it's all about writing it first. You know, we don't really care about the, you know, grammars or the sentence structures, you know, just put the thought on the paper, and then, you know, have the third eye actually to look at back, so that, you know, I think having the second eye and the third eye allows us to have, you know, a more fresher outlook of what we have written, you know, because I think at the end is just to put the ideas first on the paper, so that we don't lose, like you said, you know, reflections. We just you know, put it on the paper, so that we don't lose, you know, what we have actually read and understood at that point of time, because insight is actually some is actually what we call something important, you know, because you know, the aha moment could be not that at that point of time, maybe later on, but just put it there first, so that, you know, at least we know what we have actually read through the articles or the journals and whatnot. That is, I think one of the things that we can do. Don't worry about too much about the whether it's actually correct or not. Yeah, just do it like Nike said. No, just do it. As long at least you have something on the paper, and everything is not lost.
Yeah, true. So, and you'll be surprised on how much you have grown when you've written your proposal and then before you submit for your Viva. So just have a look at how you've grown throughout the years, and you'll be surprised what practice can improve, can make you improve yourself.
Dr. J, in terms of what you have said previously about, the fear of not getting results, similar with previous studies, people or many of us, or many of the students, we have the expectation on when we actually undertake our research, we want to have, as close as possible to the previous results. And then, if we find it that, from 20, as you said, maybe half is actually not significant, or one third, it becomes a problem, as you said, supposedly, variation is actually something interesting because you can tell new stories. So how maybe, your advice, to all of us here in terms of handling what we call the variations, so that, when we start writing, the coherence in terms of, explaining, why does this happen, because I think many of people are actually stuck, with trying to actually citing other people in terms of justifying the results. But I think in the discussion it should be critical, in terms of our input and our understanding why certain things happen that way. So maybe you have advice to actually for many of the students to handle this.
Okay. This is maybe my opinion, and I welcome other opinions as well. So once we've conducted various research, I can see that the demographic section in survey is really important, and also the comment section is really important. So some students, they neglect to see this. And the demographic section, they just ask, whatever question is sometimes not relevant. They like to ask gender, religion, but how can that question help in terms of finding meaning to your research? So make sure that you understand the population, and the demographic questions are really important, because you can always go back to your population to explain the result. So if you're talking about innovation, for example, and you know that majority of your population, they only have secondary school education, for example, then you can relate that back. Why you find that a lot of these SME CEOs, okay, although they are CEOs, but they are not trained as innovators. So, and that's why they cannot be innovative. So it's not about being the owner, it's about maybe the training or maybe the exposure that they have gone through. So once you have that information of your respondents, it can help to explain the context of your research. So this might be different from other studies, and maybe other studies have not found that because they are not looking into that focus, or maybe SMEs in other countries have different backgrounds in terms of their owners or CEOs. Another one are the comment section. We ask people to write comments regarding the issue. Okay, not only do they have any comments on the survey, but ask them, do they have any comments regarding the issues? Surprisingly, some people give really good comments, and that comments you can rely back on when you are doing your discussions. So that's from my own experience. Maybe you have other tips, or that you want to share with us, Samsuri or other researchers. But if you are doing qualitative, then you can discuss more. But if you're doing quantitative, this is where the demographic section will help you, I think. Yeah.
Thank you. I think you have explained quite well. I think to relate back what you are actually sharing about coherence, we're talking about linking back, all the what we call small details, in every what we call chapters, to show to people, where does this discussion, for example, locate in terms of, understanding the whole context, why the result is as such, why is it not significant. I think this is something that people get lost in terms of trying to answer, how can I argue that my result is actually dissimilar from the previous study, so the panic situation caused them to actually unable to actually link back, because the answer is actually, as you said, in the demographic section, the what we call, maybe there are questions that we ask, in terms of population, in terms of, the industry scenarios, for example, that could help in terms of, linking back and, make our what we call discussion and conclusion more coherent in terms of, justifying why we arrived to that conclusion. Okay, thank you. Anybody else wants to ask question?
Yeah, there's one question from Amma. Maybe I can read it myself.
Yep.
Okay, so it's about writing. So Amma, are you a final year student, a degree student, or a master student, or because you're talking about final year project? Can you maybe give us more input? Degree student. Okay, so you are talking about you are doing research on a particular industry and you want to write it in a simplified form, but the requirements, okay. So, how to answer this? So basically, yeah, there's a way to expand or elaborate certain ideas. Maybe when you write, all the references that you use is too little, okay? Some examples will be good, but I'm not sure how many is the pages? Is it 50 pages, 100 pages? So there's a danger of just trying to meet the pages requirement, okay? But the pages requirements are there for a reason. So basically, you can discuss with your supervisor. Some supervisors, they will advise you on the page limits of each chapter. Okay, in my own opinion, okay, for a degree students, introduction, you can go for 10 or 15 pages, okay? For literature review, you can go 20, 30 pages. And then for methodology is maybe the same. Analysis and discussion will be around 20 pages. So if you can try and achieve that in terms of looking it into individual chapters, then you will know what to add in, okay? Because it's also quite difficult for me to give you a particular answer for that. So you have a look back at all of your chapters. Maybe your introduction chapter needs to be strengthened more, or maybe the background needs more elaboration. Maybe it's your methodology, your sampling strategy is not well explained. So you need to look at it as a whole first and then look into where you can add more, and not just for the sake of adding, but to ensure the whole coherence, like we've mentioned in today's topic. So if your respondents, is not well explained, so you need to include the explanation, because there's a lot of pieces that I've read, like they have the among the weaknesses that we can see is, like, the students have already decided on the population. So they just say, okay, the population is the managers of a certain company. So why managers? Why not top management? Is it middle managers, top management, or what? Okay, so how do you define managers? How do you communicate with them? Is there any ethics approval required? Because if they are middle managers, will their answers need to be approved by their top management, for example? So a lot of questions that a lot of explanation can be included in sampling strategy section, to make it more a good strong research. Hopefully I help you in a way or another, Amma. So have a look at it as a whole first, and then identify which chapter that you can add on.
Thank you, Vijay. I think the key is actually trying to identify what is sufficient in terms of putting in a section. And as you said, I think it's very interesting because you're talking about just now about level of analysis. You have to look, you have to know what level of analysis in terms of what I call the dependent variable is. Is it at the organizational level? Is it at the what we call group level? Is it at the individual level? That will determine a lot in terms of trying to put information in the what we call thesis that we are actually trying to write. Because we have seen certain studies, they located at the organizational level, but the respondent are coming from what we call the individual levels, or what we call the level of employees that don't know, in terms of organizations, or what we call strategic decision making. So that could also be a problem in terms of, arriving to the conclusion, because our thesis is different than our our what we call data is actually different, talking different things. All right, so I think now it's actually close to quarter to quarter past 4. We're still waiting for. Can we get one more students? One more question before we actually close the session. We have listened to, or we have read few interesting questions. We have listened to a few what we call interesting feedback from Dr. J. So we hope to end with a bang with one more question. I know it's raining outside, but it doesn't mean that we have to be cold here. Yeah, in terms of the response and the reaction, because this is very much important. Yeah, because we can write 500 pages or even 1,000 pages, but at the end it's all about having the coherence, as Dr. J shared just now. Yeah.
So regarding the slides, I've already shared with PM Sazli through her
Okay.
WhatsApp. So maybe later on you can share with the students coming here. It's why I didn't share it earlier, because until 5 minutes before start, I'm still editing it. So it's my bad. I've just shared it with you guys. So hopefully that you can maybe share
Yeah,
with
that's the life of us.
yeah,
It's
always thinking of how to,
yeah,
improve.
always on the go, and always things to improve. So if we have no more questions, I would like to actually again thank Dr. J for this exciting sharing session. I do believe that we have actually learned a lot in terms of what we have shared today. And I hope that many of us who are present this afternoon can actually take it back, share it with other students or other colleagues who are not able to be present today. And please don't be hesitating in terms of contacting Dr. J or any one of us here, Dr. Swaidi, Dr. Fam, PM, Dr. Nur Ain, PM, Dr. Sazlin, for example, for any questions you want to actually ask with regard to your writings and whatnot. Hopefully they can lend their what we call experience to you. So all the best in terms of your research vocations. Make it a passion so that it doesn't become a burden in terms of trying to find the light at the end of the tunnel. Yeah. So for those who are still in the tunnel, don't worry. John is actually coming out. At the brighter end, inshallah. So we hope that he will graduate, inshallah, this year, if possible.
Inshallah, maybe we can invite him to share his
Yeah.
journey.
Yep. So John is kind of a unique person because he shared two DNA, UTM as well as your ITM. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's actually a very colorful, what we call journey. We used to work with him in the chancellery. So to call him Dr. John, soon, inshallah. So with the request from PM Sazin is actually for us to on our video for photo session, and then we can peacefully what we call make our move, inshallah. Okay, please.